All right, we've got our land masses, our mountains, our trees, our water. I mean, what more could be left? There's a whole lot left. Today we're going to be covering several different types of unique terrain and geography. So grab your pencil because we're pretty much going to be filling in the rest of the map. Hi everybody, my name is Nate and you are watching WASD20, a channel about tabletop RPGs and fantasy maps. Part 6, you've made it this far. And if you've made it this far and you haven't yet hit subscribe, go ahead and do that below so you can keep on getting more mapping videos. I'll keep making them as long as you guys are watching them. And go ahead and hit that bell icon down there too, and you can even get notifications when I post new videos. All right, filling in various kinds of terrain: swamps, tundra, deserts, grasslands, prairies, farm fields, all kinds of stuff. In today's video, I am really going to be filling in all the blank space on the map, but understand that you don't really need to do this. A lot of really good maps don't feel the need to fill in every single bit of blank space. Even one of the quintessential fantasy maps, that of Middle-earth, doesn't have every little nook and cranny filled in by various lines showing what kind of terrain it is. In addition, the style I usually draw in doesn't really lend itself that well to having a super spot-on representation of every bit of terrain. We're going for a pretty symbolic style overall, and we're also pretty zoomed out and kind of a grand view of this fantasy world. So it might not be realistic to expect to be able to see every little bit of land and what type of terrain goes there. That's just not really my style. Still, I have developed some ways to draw certain types of terrain, and today I'm going to show you some of those techniques. All right, let's get down to the paper. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to be drawing on this map today is a swamp. Now a swamp could be a lowland, a bog, a fen, a wetland, call it what you will, they're mostly the same thing. But you notice that the first step for me to do this is going to be to draw these little wavy lines. I'm just drawing one little wave and then repeating that over and over. Now you could also do just straight across horizontal lines. That can also work, just depends what kind of style you're going for. But in terms of placement of my swamp, I am making this one on the north side of a lake. I tend to think of them as transition areas between land and an actual body of water like a lake or a sea. And yes, you can have saltwater swamps too, so it could be very close to a sea. But it could be out in the middle of nowhere as well. It's just a place where water tends to collect, but not enough to form an actual lake or pond or whatever. After you have your little horizontal lines in place, then I make these nice little sprigs coming out of them. I tend to think of them as some kind of shrub or maybe like a skunk cabbage or something. And you can do these sporadically, you don't have to do one on every wave. And then the last step for me, and this one is more optional, is to kind of connect using these scratchy faint lines, just wisping between the existing waves, kind of showing that water is flowing every which way. And that, to my eyes, tends to read like a swamp, but there are many other ways to do it as well. Alright, next up we have grasslands. Now for these, I will generally make 3 little vertical lines showing like a little patch of grass and just kind of repeat that pattern throughout. This is a really good filler for just blank areas of your map if you want to make some line work and leave no areas blank, which for the most part I'm going to be doing on this map. It's a really good way just to kind of fill in, well, I don't want to draw trees here, I don't want to put a swamp here, I don't want to put hills, so let's just do some grasslands. There are lots of variations of this. You can do 1 little blade or 3 little blades, or sometimes I'll even do like whole kind of hill-shaped things out of blades of grass, just making hills out of vertical lines. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it looks nice to me. Another technique that's really great for just filling blank space that isn't really representative of any one terrain type is just these kind of horizontal lines that I just kind of scratch in here. I call this terrain ground. Yeah, it's something, but it just does help fill space and I think it looks nice. Alright, next up we will do hills. Hills I could have included with mountains, and often I do put them as kind of foothills to my mountains. That's a great place for hills, but you can also put just hilly regions in other parts of your map. And for these I do a really simple style where I just make some little mounds, and tend to have them almost overlapping each other, sometimes overlapping a little bit and not quite and other times. So just going around and adding some of these little mounds pretty well communicates the idea that there are hills in these regions. Alright, next up we're going to be drawing deserts. Now for deserts I tend to do the sort of scratchy horizontal lines that I showed you earlier just for kind of generally filling space, and that's a fine method for deserts. I recommend maybe adding some little stippling here and there for little like sand or rocks or something like that, but I also really like to add these crazy rock formations that I learned from Max's maps. Maxime Plas is a great cartographer. I saw this style, I really liked it. It gives the impression of this very barren wasteland. And unfortunately, when I did this in the area of Gorsham, just east of the Farswile Peaks, I did not have my camera focused well. So I'll show you this other area I decided to draw as well as a desert near Borag, and you can see me implementing this style. In addition to these crazy rock formations, I'm also adding some smaller rocks and some slight hills, maybe they're sand dunes or something like that. I actually have a lot more to learn in terms of where deserts tend to form, but you might remember that the Gorsham side of my mountains was a rain shadow. So on the west side, there was lots of rain and lots of trees therefore, and on the east side now it is going to be very dry and arid. I had one of my patrons ask me, what about tundra? Well, that's a tough one, but I'll show you what I did here. I tried a section here, just doing some of my traditional horizontal lines, and then I made these little kind of sprigs of grass, this kind of scrubland, and also added some rocks. So that was my solution, but I later realized that I don't think I really want tundra on this map. I imagined Izora to be a pretty warm climate overall, so now it's just some kind of grassy, rocky land, which is fine. A couple other ways I try to fill space on this map is by adding some more trees. This is something I do quite often, just kind of, scatter a few trees. This is what's really great about the individual tree method, is you can put a few more here or there. Additionally, I decided to draw a ruin. That does not fit under the category of terrain, but it's an extra thing I added, so I decided to show how I did it. Basically, I try to think of some of the buildings, I draw some of the towers and such, and try to think of them with chunks missing, and maybe chunks laying on the ground next to the broken buildings and such. Just a few more types of terrain that I did not put on my map of Izora, but I did want to show real quick. First off, I get asked a lot about Farmlands Fields. So here are some examples of ways I do that. You can kind of take the top-down approach or the more angled approach, just kind of crisscrossing lines of crops. Then I also get asked quite a bit about snow. And since I draw in black and white, I never have a great response to that. So you can just kind of draw these, ground lines once again, kind of scratch in some lines. But Nate, how will my players or the readers of my novel know that this is a snowy, cold region? Well, they're gonna be playing in your game and you can tell them, or reading your book and you can describe it there. Again, don't put so much pressure on your map, people. It does not need to show the exact type of terrain in every single location. There are other ways to communicate these things too. Next, I decided to try drawing just a very, very rocky land. So here are lots of rocks with some other lines too. And lastly, I tried to draw some longer, maybe reeds or some taller grass. I'm not really sure what this is, but I decided to try it, and I'm not too happy with how it came out. I don't think I would use it on my map, but there it is. All right, I think that's gonna about do it for this one, everybody. I want to thank you so much for joining me, and I especially want to give a huge thank you to my patrons. The WASD20 patrons are amazing. These people support this channel on a monthly basis and help me pay the bills and support my family. I greatly appreciate it, and if you want to join with them, you can do that. There are some pretty cool rewards too, things like weekly live map drawing streams and quarterly encounter maps hand-drawn by me. So check it out over at patreon.com/WASD20. Thanks, patrons. Everyone stay tuned for part 7, in which I will be covering lots of mapping extras, things like the compass rose, border, key, scale, all kinds of fun stuff. So definitely make sure you're subscribed, and take care, everybody. You'll see me again very soon.